Imagine this. You're settling in for your next D&D session, dice are scattered, snacks are ready, but instead of your usual dungeon master behind the screen, it's an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Kind of wild to think about, right? Is that the future of tabletop role-playing, or, maybe something we should be wary of?
That actually resonates with a game I was in just the other night. Um, we were navigating this really intricate network of underground tunnels.
Okay.
And the way the environment seemed to dynamically respond to our actions, like a sudden cave in here, a shift in the sounds echoing down the passage there, it felt almost like the world itself was anticipating our moves.
Hmm.
It definitely sparked a thought about how much of that reactive storytelling could potentially be driven by, well, an AI dungeon master.
Yeah, interesting. Let's really delve into this idea then. We're going to explore the concept of AI taking on the role of the dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons. Our primary source for this exploration is the article from LitRPG Reads titled AI as Dungeon Master, Game-Changing Innovation or Your Worst D&D Nightmare, written by Kira Mensa.
Okay, so our goal here is to understand the potential upsides and downsides of having an AI run your D&D game, to consider the various, angles involved,
Right.
and maybe think about how AI and human DMs might actually work together down the line. We'll be looking for the most interesting and perhaps unexpected aspects of this evolving landscape to give you a solid understanding of what's being discussed.
So the article highlights that there's a growing trend, people experimenting with AI as DMs, and this is often fueled by increasingly sophisticated language models, things like GPT-4. What's the core appeal of this to people, do you think?
Well, I think a major part of the attraction is the promise of truly limitless possibilities in improvisation and the sheer unpredictability of it all.
Hmm.
Imagine an AI that could theoretically generate an endless array of scenarios and react to player choices in ways that even, the most experienced human DM might not conceive of. There's a real sense of venturing into uncharted narrative territory.
The article touches on a particular project by a graduate student that generated quite a bit of buzz.
Yeah.
They essentially trained a specialized AI to be a DM using a massive data set
Yeah.
that included official D&D modules and even transcripts from something as popular and extensive as Critical Role. That's a pretty significant amount of information to feed into an AI.
It really is. And the article points out that the results were, well, quite remarkable, with the AI producing coherent narratives that even garnered praise from some who interacted with it.
Wow.
However, as you might expect with something this novel, it also ignited a significant debate. This really brings us to the central question we need to consider. Can an AI truly replicate, or maybe even elevate, the unique human element that's so integral to tabletop storytelling?
It definitely feels like we're at a point where there's both excitement and apprehension. Some people see this as a potentially revolutionary shift in how we play,
Right.
while others have more reservations, particularly when we consider the nuances of narrative, creativity, and of course the ethical dimensions, which I guess we'll get into later.
Exactly. And what's particularly compelling is the demonstrated ability of these advanced language models to handle various aspects of the DM role. They can manage complex NPC interactions through dialogue, construct entire game worlds with descriptions and histories,
Okay.
and even maintain a sense of narrative pacing as the adventure unfolds. The article shares examples of AI-driven adventures that have exhibited, a surprising degree of narrative intricacy.
And it's not just about these grand sweeping narratives, is it? The article mentions the possibility of fine-tuning AI DMs using very specific source material like particular adventure modules or established lore from campaign settings.
That's a good point.
That could really lead to a heightened sense of consistency and thematic depth within a game, potentially.
Exactly. And when we consider some of the more logistical aspects of running a game, such as interpreting rules on the fly and improvising in response to unexpected player actions, AI offers a unique advantage.
How so?
Well, it can process and respond to multiple player inputs simultaneously without experiencing the kind of mental fatigue that a human DM can face, especially during longer sessions.
As someone who spent many hours behind the DM screen, I can certainly appreciate the idea of something that doesn't get mentally worn out.
Right.
The article also brings up the interesting point that some players might value the sort of objective way an AI can interpret and apply rules, as well as maybe the novel perspectives it might bring to familiar scenarios.
That's right. The fundamental strengths of AI in this context seem to lie in its constant availability, like it's ready to play whenever you are, and its inherent impartiality when it comes to rules. Plus, in certain respects, its creative potential can be vast, drawing upon the massive amounts of data it has been trained on to generate novel ideas.
Okay, let's delve a bit deeper into those potential advantages the article outlines. The round-the-clock availability, that's a pretty significant one, isn't it? Coordinating schedules for a regular game can often be a real challenge.
Oh, it's a major factor, definitely. Especially for more casual players or those who prefer to engage in solo role-playing experiences.
Hmm.
An AI DM provides that flexibility of always being ready when the player has time.
Yeah.
And, the potential for cost savings for groups who maybe don't have a consistent human DM is also a notable consideration.
The article also raises an interesting point about accessibility, specifically for neurodiverse players or those who might experience social anxiety. How might an AI DM create a more comfortable or accessible gaming environment for these individuals?
Well, the way an AI can structure and pace dialogue might be beneficial for players with social anxieties, as it can offer a more predictable and maybe less overwhelming interaction style.
Okay, I see.
Similarly, the consistent and unambiguous application of rules by an AI could provide a sense of structure and predictability that can be reassuring for some players. It could even serve as a valuable tool for individuals interested in learning how to DM themselves, offering a low-pressure environment to practice.
That's interesting. And the idea of collaborative storytelling with an AI is also quite intriguing. Could you expand on how an AI might handle certain elements of the game, sort of freeing up a human DM to focus on other aspects?
Certainly. Imagine AI managing the details of numerous minor non-player characters, or generating rich and detailed descriptions of locations as the players explore.
Right, the background stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Or even assisting with brainstorming potential plot hooks and quest ideas on the fly. This would free up the human DM to concentrate on the overarching narrative direction, the development of key characters and their relationships, and those crucial emotional beats within the story.
The article provides a fairly extensive list of specific benefits, actually, ranging from having an unlimited memory for details and generating lore spontaneously to offering multilingual support and providing instant rule clarifications. It almost sounds like a dungeon master's ultimate toolkit in some ways.
It really does highlight the potential for AI to be an incredibly versatile tool,
Mhm.
whether it's, capable of running multiple campaigns concurrently, ensuring consistent application of rules across different scenarios,
Mhm.
offering the convenience of drop-in, drop-out play sessions, or rapidly generating descriptions for newly discovered items. And the idea that it could be accessible to players of all experience levels, potentially offering novel scenarios and unbiased interactions, that's quite compelling.
However, the article also addresses some pretty significant limitations, particularly in the realm of narrative. What are some of the fundamental challenges that AI currently faces when it comes to crafting truly engaging and meaningful stories?
Yeah, that's key. One of the core aspects that is currently lacking in AI is, well, genuine intent. So much of nuanced storytelling relies on the dungeon master's underlying intentions behind the narrative choices they make, right?
Why? The why.
Exactly. AI also faces challenges with maintaining consistent memory and thematic through lines across very long campaigns, which can sometimes lead to a sort of disjointed or inconsistent feel.
That makes perfect sense.
Right.
A human DM carries the entire weight and history of the narrative in their mind, ideally constantly weaving together different threads and character arcs. It's difficult to imagine how an AI could replicate that kind of organic, long-term cohesion.
Precisely. And the article points out difficulties with handling situations involving moral ambiguity, developing truly complex and evolving character arcs, and building genuine dramatic tension that resonates with players on an emotional level.
Yeah.
There have been instances mentioned where AI-generated adventures have suffered from a breakdown in narrative coherence, maybe due to the AI getting caught in logical loops, or prioritizing like a surface level consistency over deeper dramatic impact.
And I would imagine that capturing the emotional heart of a story is a particularly significant hurdle for AI. I mean, while it can generate text that describes emotions, can it truly understand and convey those emotions in a way that feels authentic and impactful to the players?
That's really the critical point, isn't it? While an AI might be able to identify and even replicate certain narrative tropes related to emotions, it often lacks the genuine understanding and empathy that a human DM brings to the table.
Mm.
This can sometimes result in a story that feels, well, somewhat hollow, or that mishandles sensitive or emotionally complex content.
The article even includes a really interesting comparison table looking at human DMs, AI-only DMs, and hybrid systems across a range of qualities, things like creativity, emotional nuance, even humor. What were some of the key distinctions that stood out there?
Yeah, that table was useful. It effectively highlighted the relative strengths of each approach. Human DMs typically excel in areas like creativity, maintaining narrative continuity over long periods, though, that can vary.
Sure.
Conveying emotional nuance, improvising effectively, fostering player immersion, and demonstrating empathy. AI, on the other hand, tends to shine in areas like consistent rule enforcement and adherence to established lore.
Okay.
Hybrid systems, as you might expect, aim to leverage the strengths of both, often showing improvements across many of those key aspects, at least in theory.
So it seems clear that while AI has the potential to mimic certain aspects of storytelling and game management, that intrinsic intentionality and intuition that human DMs possess are still largely absent. Which brings us back to this idea of hybrid systems. What does the article suggest about how we might effectively combine AI and human DMing?
Well, the article strongly advocates for the development and adoption of hybrid systems as probably the most promising path forward. This approach focuses on how we can integrate the systematic capabilities of AI with the, irreplaceable creativity and empathy of human DMs to create richer and more engaging tabletop role-playing experiences.
Right.
The key idea here is augmentation, not complete replacement.
That makes a lot of sense. Utilizing AI as a powerful tool to enhance and support what human DMs already do best, rather than trying to replicate the entire human experience, it avoids some of the pitfalls.
Exactly. This collaboration could really unlock new creative possibilities and, frankly, alleviate some of the burdens of DMing, allowing human storytellers to focus on the aspects of the game that are most uniquely suited for the story, the emotion, the connection.
Now, we touched on ethics earlier, but the article goes into more depth, especially regarding how these AIs are trained. What are some of the key ethical and maybe even legal questions arising?
Yeah, this is a big one. The article raises significant points about the ethical and legal boundaries, particularly when training data includes copyrighted material, like official D&D modules, or even fan-made content. The example of using Critical Role transcripts falls right into this.
Ah, right. Because that's someone else's creative output, essentially.
Precisely. There's a real concern about fan enthusiasm potentially conflicting with creators' rights and intellectual property. The lines around fair use become incredibly blurry when unofficial material is used to train a commercial or even just a widely distributed AI model.
So that graduate student project, using those transcripts, it likely sparked debate on this front too.
Absolutely. The article notes varied reactions, but the core ethical concerns highlighted include things like consent in data usage. Did the creators agree to this? Misrepresentation of intent. Is the AI capturing the spirit or just mimicking the words? Also, the potential replication of toxic tropes if the training data isn't carefully curated, lack of proper credit or attribution, the commercialization of what might be fan content, and the general ambiguity around using these materials without clear authorization. There's also the potential for cultural appropriation if lore isn't handled sensitively, lack of accountability if the AI generates harmful content, and inherent biases creeping in from the data.
That's a lot to consider. It sounds like there's a real need for clear ethical frameworks and guidelines, probably developed with input from creators themselves.
Definitely. The article stresses the importance of transparency and collaboration between AI developers and the creative communities to ensure responsible evolution of AI DMs. We need to figure out how to do this right.
Okay, so looking towards the future then, the article seems optimistic about collaboration, about AI augmenting human DMs rather than replacing them. How might that look in practice?
Well, the vision presented is AI as a powerful assistant. Think ideation help, generating background details for locations or NPCs on the fly, maybe even scripting initial dialogue for minor characters.
So handling some of the prep work or the less critical interactions.
Exactly. There are apparently efforts in game design communities already trying to formalize AI's role in session planning. It could automate some of the more monotonous tasks, like tracking inventory or initiative,
Oh, that would be handy.
or provide spontaneous narrative twists based on parameters set by the human DM. It becomes a collaborator, sharing the spotlight, maybe handling the nitty-gritty like NPC stat blocks, while the human DM focuses on the big picture, the overarching narrative, the emotional journeys of the players.
That leads into designing these hybrid play systems. What's the thinking there? How do you actually build a system where AI and human work together smoothly?
The core philosophy seems to be letting AI handle complexities, where it excels like rules, data management, maybe quick procedural generation, while humans navigate the nuances of emotion, theme, and player interaction.
So dividing the labor based on strengths.
Pretty much. Examples given include a human DM guiding the core story arc, while an AI manages side quests or dynamically populates a dungeon based on player actions, but within parameters set by the human.
Is the tech there yet? Are tools supporting this?
Software is evolving. The article mentions possibilities within virtual tabletops and dedicated gaming apps to support these hybrid systems. A crucial aspect highlighted is the need to clearly distinguish AI-generated content, maybe through tagging or specific narrative markers, so players always know the source.
That transparency seems important. What are some key design considerations the article flags for making these hybrid systems work well?
There's a whole list, actually. Things like letting the AI manage mechanics and stats, clear tagging of AI content, testing for tonal consistency between human and AI contributions, using AI for quick scenario generation, but not major plot points unless guided.
So keeping the human in control of the core experience. Essentially, yes. Preserving emotional depth requires human oversight. Setting clear boundaries for the AI. Having it suggest rather than dictate plot points, using it for rule clarifications or brainstorming, refining the data sets it uses. It's all about finding that synergy.
Balancing machine efficiency with human intuition and creativity.
You got it. That seems to be the goal.
Okay, so to sort of summarize our deep dive into this topic, it appears that AI offers some genuinely exciting possibilities as a dungeon master, or perhaps more accurately as a very capable co-DM or assistant.
Right.
However, it does face significant limitations, particularly when it comes to the subtle art of emotional storytelling and narrative intent.
Yeah.
And there are really important ethical and legal considerations to keep in mind as this technology continues to evolve.
Definitely.
The most likely future, as the article suggests and as we've discussed, seems to lie in thoughtfully designed hybrid systems that harness the power of AI while still valuing and prioritizing the unique creativity and empathy of human dungeon masters. That's a concise and accurate overview, I think, and it really prompts you, the listener, to think about how our understanding of storytelling itself and that vital human connection we find in games like D&D might be reshaped as AI becomes more integrated into our hobbies.
Yeah.
What role do you imagine AI might play at your own gaming table in the years to come? It's fascinating to consider.
A big thanks to LitRPG Reads and to Kira Mensa for providing such a thought-provoking article for us to discuss. And a special shout out to Paul Bello, fine fellow indeed.
Absolutely. And we're genuinely interested to hear what you all think about this. Head down to the comments section wherever you're listening and share your perspectives on the potential, the pitfalls, the future of AI as a dungeon master.